when did you first come to Los Alamos?
March 25th or so, 1944. This place had been in operation for about a year then. I know some of the first people who came here started about April 15th in 43. But it was very slow going. They had to build buildings, and some of the people lived over in the National Park, Bandelier, while they were building barracks. And I was in the first barracks for the Special Engineer Detachment. There were 150 people in that barracks, 75, a U-shaped building. And in the middle of a U-shaped building were the latrines, separated both sides. And on one side was my bunk, and on the other side was Green Glass, a very famous spy, so-called. He was a machinist, actually, in working on various forms. My first assignment, as I said, was counting neutrons, and this is done chemically. It turns out if you take a solution of manganese in a balloon flask and put a neutron emitting substance in the middle of that flask, you'll knock the permanganate apart and you get a precipitate, something called manganese dioxide. You filter off this manganese dioxide and you find out it's become radioactive. And it has a beta emission. So what you do is count the betas, and from the number of neutrons, dependent upon the number of neutrons, you get a certain amount of radioactive manganese. So by counting the manganese, we were able to see how many neutrons were being emitted.
In the early 90s, after the Soviet Union dissolved, we put together a sort of a strategic vision and a strategic plan for the laboratory. And it was 3 concentric circles. And the inner circle was what we called reducing the nuclear danger. And we felt that the work we did on nuclear weapons reduces the global nuclear danger because it keeps our deterrent, it keeps other countries from getting ideas as to that they can attack us. So that was still our prime responsibility, but because the fact that the Soviet Union, our primary adversary, went away, then we changed that reducing the global nuclear danger to do lots of other things related to preventing nuclear proliferation, that is the spread of nuclear weapons to other countries, or to prevent nuclear terrorism, that is the spread of nuclear weapons, nuclear materials to terrorist organizations. And so all of a sudden our nuclear work then became not just weapons work, but for years we already had a number of scientists that were involved in nuclear detection, nuclear monitoring. We took their capabilities to build up a really substantial portfolio of activities associated with what we call nuclear nonproliferation, counterterrorism, nuclear material security. And these are especially the programs then that we worked intensely with the former Soviet Union. In other words, Russia, Kazakhstan, and many of the other countries of the former Soviet Union. So our portfolio then grew from nuclear weapons work to include all of these other nuclear things, and then particularly also in the early 1990s, because of the concerns of the nuclear complex around and the legacy of that complex in environmental terms, then we really got into the environmental remediation business, understanding the chemistry of environmental remediation. How do you take care of places like Hanford in Washington State, Savannah River, or Rocky Flats?
But anyway, here's some photographs of what it was like. This was our front yard. In the middle of the area, they had clotheslines. I mean, these are really great pictures, but it gives you an idea of what it was like.
Right.
This is my this was my shop teacher, Mr. Rose, and his little girl. So they lived there. This is a picture of the bathhouse. There's one more. Let's see what else I have in here. And some of these were my little friends. And again, you can see what it was like. I don't know if you want to take pictures of all these or you can scan them. In all these little pictures, I never had my hair combed. I mean, I was just always a tomboy, huh? My mom used to tell me, full of vim and vinegar. These are my little friends, I think. This was Peaches and Alice. And Peaches' family, or her dad, used to own the dry cleaning business. And these are school pictures. And this is a picture and my friend Sally Berkheimer and my little friend Alice. This was 1957. And this was when I was in kindergarten, 1955. She tried to comb my hair. On my father's side lived 2 trailers down. This was the backyard of the trailer court, and we had a lawn, huh? We had the nicest lawn, and always playing. We were playing in the backyard. We play cowboys, and I remember one time we'd play with our bicycles. We'd turn them upside down and play with the wheels like we were going down the river. Tarzan, I guess we were doing Tarzan. We're going down the river. We never saw any rivers, but...
Oh, I was delighted. I had a fingerprint on my thumb. I had a picture, you know, and the kids, we were so little that they had to pick us up and hold us while you got fingerprinted. It's like, okay, yeah, it was great to have a pass. Everybody thought it was, I don't know anybody who didn't like having a pass. And you know, I don't know if you've heard this from people, they go, oh, you know, they raised the age from 6 to 8, and I just missed getting a pass. And then when I was almost 8, they raised it to 10. I never got a pass. Big deal.
Oh wow. Okay, so did anybody ever lose their pass?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
What happened?
Oh, I lost a pass once, and everybody lost a pass. You know, you tell your parents you would never lose it. I lost mine. I was probably 12, and I was so scared, but you know, you had to tell because you couldn't leave. And so I got another pass after getting in trouble, and then I found my pass. I still have it. Never told anybody I found the first pass.
This interview, I will describe my participation in the Cold War from 1955 to 1992, 37 years. This was primarily in anti-submarine warfare, and more explicitly in the experimental physics and the evolution of the technology to support large experiments conducted in the world's oceans in all environmental conditions. One of the principal reoccurring requirements in studying the physics of sound in the ocean is to put a vertical array of hydrophones in the ocean at some depth, very popular depths at 3,000 feet where sound propagates very well. Hang them vertically, keep them there motionlessly during a period of time when we take a sound source and move it through the ocean at long ranges to study the propagation of sound through the water. It seems very simple. The problem is you've got to hold these guys very quietly in place for a long time in the ocean. This was done in 1965. There was no basic technology to do this. The technology you would use would be land-based technology. You try to adapt that. To make this array, I contracted with a company, a cable company, to run a wire rope through their cable machine and physically, by hand, lay up wires, taper the array by putting the first cable on, wind it around the strength member, put the next one on, the next one on, the next one on, until you build up the cable to probably about 1.5 inches. To hold them in place, you had to tape them with black tape, kind of like you do in your garage, okay, to hold this bunch together. And then the cable would go up to the surface where you applied floats to offset the weight of the cable and the weight at the bottom, then cable it back to the ship.